The moment Darius Coleman placed his signature on those divorce papers, everyone in that private airport lounge thought they were watching a man lose everything. His wife thought so. Her friends thought so. Even the attorney sitting across from him looked at him like he was witnessing the quiet collapse of a proud man. But they were all wrong. They were not watching a man surrender. They were watching a man stay silent while a trap closed around the people who had spent years underestimating him. And that was the thing about Darius Coleman. He never looked dangerous. He never raised his voice. He never wore his money on his body. He never walked into a room begging anyone to notice him. To people who only understood noise, that made him look weak. To people who worshipped luxury, that made him look poor. To people who confused humility with failure, that made him look like a man they could laugh at. And on that afternoon, Vanessa Coleman laughed. She stood beside the polished black table in a fitted black dress, arms crossed, chin lifted, wearing the kind of smile a person wears when they believe they have finally won. Behind her were three of her closest friends, women with designer bags, sharp perfume, and sharper tongues. They whispered among themselves, glancing at Darius like he was some embarrassing chapter. Vanessa had finally decided to close. Outside the glass wall of the terminal, a black private jet sat under the afternoon sun. Sleek, powerful, silent. Vanessa did not know it belonged to him. That was the part nobody in that room understood. Darius Coleman was not signing away defeat. He was signing away a performance. The attorney pushed the last page toward him. "Mr. Coleman," he said carefully, "this is the final document." Darius picked up the pen. Vanessa tilted her head. "That's it?" she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "No begging? No fight? No speech?" One of her friends laughed under her breath. Another said, "Maybe he finally understands his level." That one got more laughter. Darius lowered the pen to the paper and wrote his name slowly. Not because he was hesitant, not because his hand was shaking, but because some moments deserve to be remembered exactly as they are. Every letter was calm. Every stroke was controlled. Vanessa watched him, waiting for something. Anger, pain, regret, maybe tears. She got nothing. And somehow, that bothered her more than if he had broken down. When he finished, he placed the pen on the table, straightened the papers, and slid them back. Vanessa smiled wider. "I really thought you would fight harder," she said. Darius looked at her. For a few seconds, he said nothing. Because when someone has spent years misunderstanding you, explaining yourself becomes a waste of breath. And Darius had stopped wasting breath on Vanessa a long time ago. 5 years earlier, things were different. Back then, Vanessa used to say she loved how calm he was. She said he made her feel safe. She said he was different from the loud men she had known before. No showing off, no fake promises, no desperate need to prove he was important. Darius was respected in South Atlanta, but not because he acted rich. He drove an old truck that still carried memories of his father. He wore practical shoes. He kept the same watch for years. He fixed things himself, even when he could have paid someone else to do it. He worked long hours, asked few questions, and listened more than he spoke. His father, Leon Coleman, had raised him that way. "Real money whispers," Leon used to say. Every Sunday after church, while polishing that old pickup in the driveway, Leon would repeat it like scripture. "Son, loud money gets attention. Quiet money gets protected." As a boy, Darius did not fully understand it. As a husband, he began to. And after his father died, he understood it even more. Because Leon Coleman had not left behind just memories. He had left behind responsibility. Trusts, real estate, logistics contracts, aviation holdings, and a private jet charter company that had been built quietly over decades, layer by layer, route by route, deal by deal. Old money, protected money, invisible money, the kind that did not need applause to be powerful. But Leon had left one warning with all of it. Never reveal everything to someone who only loves what money can buy. At first, Darius thought that warning was just his father being cautious. Then marriage taught him the difference between love and admiration. At the beginning, Vanessa admired his discipline. Later, she resented it. At the beginning, she called him humble. Later, she called him small. That word stayed with him. Small. She started saying it during arguments, then during casual conversations, then in front of other people. You always think small, Darius. You dress small. You dream small. You act like success is something to hide. He would look at her when she said it, and some quiet part of him would ache. Not because she insulted him, but because she was insulting the very things she once claimed to love. The change did not happen overnight. It started with little jokes. At dinners, at family gatherings, at brunches with her new friends. Darius still drives that old truck like it's a family member. Laughter. Darius thinks bottled water is a luxury. More laughter. Darius and his little business stuff. Little. That word again. At first, he laughed with them because he did not want to be sensitive. Then one night, while everyone else was laughing, he looked at Vanessa and realized something cold. She was not laughing with him. She was laughing at him. And there is a difference. A painful one. Vanessa had begun moving in circles that valued appearance more than character. Influencer wives, brunch groups, women who measured love by vacations, jewelry, cars, handbags, and how often a man posted them online. People who treated modesty like failure and patience like weakness. Around them, Vanessa changed. Her voice became sharper. Her eyes became restless. Her comparisons became constant. Why don't we travel like them? Why don't you wear designer? Why don't you buy a better house? Why do you always act like we have nothing? Darius would listen, sometimes answer, sometimes stay quiet. But every complaint confirmed what his father had warned him about. Vanessa did not want more life with him. She wanted more image from him. One humid summer night, she came home late. Not just late in time, late in spirit. Something about her was different. Her perfume was unfamiliar. Her smile was too soft, too careful. The kind of smile people wear when guilt enters the house before they do. Darius was sitting at the dining table, reviewing documents from one of the aviation trusts. She paused in the doorway. You're still awake? He closed one folder halfway. Yeah. Her eyes moved to the papers. What is all that? She asked. More of your mystery business? She laughed. But her eyes did not laugh. They searched, measured, calculated. Darius felt something tighten inside him. Not because she asked, because she only became curious when she smelled value. He closed the folder completely. Just paperwork. She walked behind him and kissed his cheek. Always paperwork, she murmured. Then she went upstairs. Darius sat there for a long time after she left, staring at the closed folder. Something had shifted. A few weeks later, his cousin Malik pulled him aside at a family cookout. The day was warm. Kids ran through sprinklers. Smoke rose from the grill. Old school music played from a speaker on the porch. Everybody was laughing, eating, living, but Malik's face was serious. "Dee," he said quietly, "your wife talks reckless." Darius looked at him. "What you mean?" Malik glanced toward the yard, making sure nobody was close. "She acts like she married beneath herself." The words landed hard, not loud, heavy. Darius said nothing. Malik continued, "I don't do gossip. You know that. But I'm telling you as family. Watch who claps when you fall." Darius looked across the yard at Vanessa. She was laughing with two women near the patio, head tilted back, sunlight on her face. For a second, she looked like the woman he had married. Then one of her friends said something, and Vanessa glanced at him with a smirk. Just a small one, but enough. Watch who claps when you fall. That sentence stayed with him, because some people do not wait for your downfall. They rehearse for it. After that, Darius began watching more than he spoke. He noticed Vanessa's late nights, her guarded phone calls, the way she stepped out of the room when certain messages came in, the way she suddenly asked questions about companies she had never cared about before. "Do you own any shares in anything? Your father left you property, right? Why don't you ever talk about what your family really has?" He would answer lightly, or not at all, and each time he refused to open the door, her frustration grew. Then came the dinner that confirmed everything. Vanessa insisted he join her and her friends at an upscale restaurant downtown. Darius did not want to go, but he went, because marriage makes you attend things your instincts already warned you about. From the beginning, the energy was wrong. Her friends looked him up and down like they were reviewing an item they would never buy. One of them asked, "So, Darius, what exactly do you do?" Before he could answer, Vanessa smiled. "Oh, he does his little business stuff." There it was again. Little. The table laughed. Another friend leaned forward. "So basically mysterious and unemployed?" The laughter got louder. Darius took a sip of water. Calm. Quiet. But inside, something shut. Not exploded. Shut. Because disrespect, when repeated often enough, stops looking accidental. It becomes a decision. That night, he drove home in silence. Vanessa scrolled through her phone, smiling at messages, not once noticing how tightly his hands held the steering wheel. When they got home, she went upstairs. Darius stayed in the living room, sitting in the dark. The house was quiet, too quiet, and, in that darkness, he finally admitted what he had been avoiding. His marriage was no longer living on truth. It was surviving on memory. Months later, Vanessa asked for divorce like she was canceling a service. No tears, no trembling voice, no sorrow, just a cold sentence across the kitchen island. "I need a man with ambition." Darius almost smiled, not because it was funny, because irony, if it had a sound, would have shaken the walls. A man with ambition. She was standing in front of a man who owned more than she had ever imagined, calling him ambitionless because he did not perform wealth for her approval. But he did not correct her. He simply nodded. "When do you want to file?" She blinked. That was not the reaction she expected. People like Vanessa often confuse resistance with love. They think if you do not beg, you never cared. They do not understand that sometimes acceptance is not weakness. Sometimes acceptance is someone refusing to bleed for an audience. Vanessa narrowed her eyes. "That's it?" Darius looked at her. "That's it." Her pride wanted a fight. His silence denied her one. Then she made the strange request. She wanted the final signing done at a private airport lounge. Darius looked at her for a long moment. "Why there?" She lifted one shoulder. "Symbolism." "Symbolism?" "I'm moving upward," she said. "I want the end to feel like the start of something bigger." Darius almost asked when arrogance had started sounding so rehearsed, but he did not. He agreed, because by then, he was not reacting anymore. He was watching, and when a man like Darius starts watching, people who think they are ahead should be very afraid. The morning of the signing, he arrived early. The private terminal was quiet, polished, and cool. Beyond the glass, the black jet waited on the tarmac, its body shining under the sun. Darius stood near the window for a moment, looking at it. His father used to bring him here as a boy. Leon would point at aircraft numbers, explain routes, ownership structures, maintenance costs, contracts, liabilities, responsibilities. Most fathers taught their sons how to throw a ball. Leon taught Darius how to protect a legacy without letting the world know where the doors were. "Never fall in love with being seen," Leon once told him. "The moment people know what you have, they start planning how to touch it." Back then, Darius thought his father was too guarded. Now he wished he had listened sooner. A pilot walked by and nodded respectfully. "Morning, Mr. Coleman." Darius gave a small nod back. Vanessa did not notice. Her friends did not notice, but the attorney did. His eyes flickered toward Darius, then toward the jet, then back down at the papers. "Interesting. Very interesting." Vanessa arrived with her friends like she had dressed for a victory ceremony. Black dress, gold jewelry, perfect makeup, a smile polished for humiliation. They sat, they laughed, they whispered, they made small comments they thought were quiet enough. Darius heard them all. "Look at him. He really came alone." "Vanessa, girl, you are free." "He's taking it better than I thought." Vanessa leaned toward him as the attorney arranged the documents. "After today," she said softly, Don't call me when life humbles you. Her friends burst into laughter. Darius looked at the papers, then at the jet, then at Vanessa, and for the first time that afternoon, he spoke. Life already humbled me. Vanessa's smile weakened. What's that supposed to mean? Darius capped the pen and stood. It means I learned who celebrates losing me. For 1 second, something cracked in her expression. Tiny, quick, but real. Then Darius buttoned his jacket, turned, and walked away. No shouting, no speech, no dramatic exit, just silence. And somehow, that silence shook the room harder than anger ever could. But what Vanessa did not know was that the real shock was not at the signing table. It would come later, 3 days later, when she would discover that the little business stuff she mocked was connected to the very jet she had laughed in front of. And even that was not the full truth. Because the real story was not that Darius owned a private jet. The real story was why he let her believe he owned nothing. After leaving the airport, Darius drove to a quiet neighborhood in Decatur and parked outside a small house with a wide porch and flower beds lining the walkway. Miss Loretta was sitting outside shelling peas into a silver bowl. She had been his father's oldest friend, the kind of woman who did not need you to explain pain because she could read it in the way you walked. Darius climbed the steps. She looked at him once. You signed? He nodded. Miss Loretta sighed. Pain makes folks reveal themselves. He sat beside her. For a while, neither of them spoke. The bowl clicked softly as peas dropped inside. Then she said, Your daddy used to say wealth don't test character nearly as much as hidden wealth. Darius looked at her. She smiled sadly. You finally understand him now. He did, more than ever. But something still bothered him. Why had Vanessa pushed for that airport signing? Why there? Why in front of that jet? It was too specific, too theatrical, too intentional. And Darius trusted his instincts. His instincts were whispering that the divorce was not just emotional. It was strategic. That night, he went home and opened old files, trust documents, call logs, business notices, security alerts. He read for hours. Then he saw something that made his body go still. Unauthorized inquiries, repeated access attempts, questions filed against one of the family trusts. Someone had been searching quietly for months. His jaw tightened. This was no longer just a broken marriage. This was something else. Something arranged. And suddenly, Vanessa's laughter at the airport sounded different. Not just cruel, confident, like someone expecting a bigger win. Darius picked up his phone and called Malik. You free? For you? Always. What's up? I need help checking something. By midnight, they were sitting side by side in Darius's office, piecing together names, phone numbers, business contacts, and financial trails. Vanessa's new friends. A boutique investor. A man funding her lifestyle upgrades. Questions around aviation shares. Then Malik stopped moving. His face changed. Darius looked over. What? Malik turned the laptop toward him. You know who this man is? Darius leaned closer. The name on the screen was not random. It reached back years, back to his father, back to an old business rival Leon had once refused to partner with, back to old wounds Darius had never been fully told about. The room seemed to grow colder. Darius sat back slowly. The divorce had just changed shape. It was no longer only betrayal. It was entry. Someone had used Vanessa's pride as a key. Someone had studied her resentment, fed it, sharpened it, and pointed it toward him. For the first time in years, Darius felt anger rise inside him. Not loud anger, cold anger, focused anger, the kind that does not shout because it is already planning. Malik watched him carefully. What you going to do? Darius stared at the screen. Nothing yet. Nothing? Darius looked at him. Sometimes the strongest move is letting people keep believing they're ahead. In the days that followed, Vanessa celebrated online. Freedom. New season. Soft life. Leveling up. People congratulated her. Her friends posted photos from brunches, raising glasses, laughing under captions about leaving dead weight behind. They all thought she had escaped an ordinary man. But Darius noticed something else. Vanessa kept waiting. checking, asking, pressing, like someone who expected a door to open and could not understand why it had not, because greed gets impatient, and impatience exposes motive. 4 days after the divorce, Darius received a call from a private number. He answered. A woman's voice spoke, professional but tense. Mr. Coleman, we've received an inquiry regarding Aircraft Transfer Authority. Darius's face hardened. From who? A pause. Then the name. Vanessa Coleman. He said nothing, but inside, every piece locked into place. This had never been about leaving him. It had been about accessing what she thought leaving him would reveal. His father's warnings, her question, the airport location, the laughing confidence, the unauthorized inquiries. It all connected. Leon had built safeguards for a reason. Vanessa did not know that. Whoever was guiding her did not know that either. And now they had finally made a move, which meant the game had officially begun. That evening, Darius returned to the private airport alone. The terminal was quiet. The jet waited under low lights, black and still, like it had been holding secrets longer than anyone knew. He stepped inside and ran his hand along the leather seats. His father had sat there, planned there, protected everything from there. For a moment, grief and strategy mixed in his chest until he could barely tell the difference. The pilot appeared near the cabin entrance. You all right, sir? Darius looked out the window. Then he asked quietly, Tell me something. Yes, sir? If someone thinks they stole a kingdom... He paused. A faint smile touched his face. What happens when they realize they only touched the gate? The pilot chuckled softly. Depends how patient the king is. Darius leaned back, and for the first time since signing those papers, he smiled. Because humiliation was beginning to look a lot like camouflage, and maybe that had always been the purpose. But across the city, Vanessa was not celebrating anymore. She was sitting in the back corner of an expensive restaurant, across from a man she had never mentioned to Darius. Older, sharp suit, cold eyes, the kind of man who smiled without warmth. She slid a folder across the table. He signed everything, she whispered. The man opened it. Read the first page, then the second. Then his expression changed. Vanessa frowned. What? He looked up slowly. No. Her confidence faltered. No what? These documents don't give you protection. Her throat tightened. What are you talking about? The man's voice dropped. They protect him. For the first time, Vanessa looked afraid, and in that moment, she realized something that should have terrified her from the beginning. She may not have divorced an ordinary husband. She may have walked straight into a trap she did not understand. Across the city, inside the darkened jet, Darius's phone buzzed. Unknown number. One sentence. Your father did not die over inheritance. Darius stared at the screen. A second message arrived. He died over betrayal. His heart began to pound. Then a third message appeared. And your ex-wife knows more than she told you. Darius stood slowly. The jet felt colder now. The silence felt alive. Marriage. Inheritance. His father's death. Maybe none of it had been what he believed. He whispered into the empty cabin. What did you leave me in the middle of, Dad? At that exact moment, the cockpit lights powered on by themselves. Darius froze. Then he heard movement behind him. Someone stepped out from the rear cabin. A voice from the shadows said, About time, you started asking. And for one breathless second, Darius Coleman thought the dead had come back to answer him. Before this story moves deeper into the truth Darius was never meant to find, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments which city or country you're watching from. Because stories like this remind us that sometimes the quietest person in the room is carrying the biggest secret. For a moment, Darius Coleman could not move. The voice coming from the rear cabin was not just familiar. It was impossible. The man stepped forward slowly, hands raised just enough to show he was no threat. Gray beard, dark coat, tired eyes that had seen more than they had ever explained. Darius stared at him like the air had been stolen from his lungs. Uncle Reggie? Reginald Brooks gave a small, sad smile. Hello, son. Darius took one step back. No. Reggie stopped. I know. No, Darius said again, louder this time. You moved to Louisiana. You disappeared after my father died. That's what people needed to believe. Needed. That word hit the cabin like a dropped stone. Darius looked around the jet, then back at him. What is this? Reggie's face changed. The softness left. What remained was serious, careful, heavy. It's the part of your father's life he hoped you would never have to carry. Darius let out a bitter breath. My father is dead. My marriage just turned into some kind of setup. Someone is trying to touch assets I didn't even tell my wife about. And now you're standing inside my jet like a ghost, telling me this was all planned. Reggie nodded slowly. Not planned, protected. Darius's jaw tightened. Start talking. Reggie motioned toward the seat. Darius did not sit. Reggie understood. Your father knew they would come through family. The words made Darius go still. Who? The people circling your inheritance. The people who tried to break Leon before you were old enough to understand what he had built. Darius shook his head. My father had business rivals. That's not new. This was not just business. Reggie reached into his coat and pulled out an old brown envelope. The edges were worn. The seal had already been broken. He placed it on the small table between them. Your father built more than a company, Darius. Darius looked down at the envelope but did not touch it. What did he build? A shield. Darius gave a humorless laugh. You're talking like this is some movie. Reggie stepped closer. No, son. I'm talking like a black man who watched another black man build wealth quietly, because he knew the wrong people would rather destroy it than respect it. That sentence landed differently. It did not sound dramatic. It sounded old, like history, like warning, like something passed down from men who had learned the hard way that success was not always safe when too many eyes wanted a piece of it. Reggie tapped the envelope. Your father protected his wealth with layers, trusts, holding companies, legal walls, silent partners, documentation, and people. People? People loyal enough not to sell him out. Darius finally sat. His body moved before his pride could stop it. Reggie sat across from him and opened the envelope. Inside were letters, old contracts, handwritten notes, photographs, and printed records. Darius recognized his father's handwriting immediately. Strong, slanted, certain. One line was underlined twice. Never confuse a test of loyalty with punishment. Darius swallowed hard. His chest tightened. So he knew about Vanessa? Reggie looked at him carefully. He suspected someone would try to reach you through love. He didn't know it would be her. That hurt. More than Darius expected. Even after the laughter, the lies, the divorce, the secret inquiries, some part of him had still wanted the marriage to be only broken, not engineered, not used, not turned into a door by people who had been waiting outside his life for years. Reggie leaned forward. Listen carefully. Vanessa may have entered your life honestly, but after she was in it, people got to her. Darius frowned. What does that mean? It means not every pawn knows it's being moved. That made the anger more complicated. Darius hated complicated anger. Simple anger was clean. Someone wronged you, you cut them off, you move on. But this had layers. Vanessa had humiliated him. That was real. She had mocked him. That was real. She had tried to access what was not hers. That was real. But someone had also fed her pride, her insecurity, her resentment, until she became useful. That did not erase what she did, but it changed the shape of it. Reggie slid a flash drive across the table. There are things your father left behind. Things he couldn't prove before he died. Things he wanted protected until the right person made the wrong move. Darius stared at the flash drive. And Vanessa just made it. Yes. Darius looked at him. Who is behind this? Reggie's eyes darkened. Victor Haynes. The name was familiar from the files Malik had found. Leon's old rival. The man funding Vanessa's boutique. The man whose name had been buried under companies, investors, and favors. Darius sat back slowly. What did he want? What men like him always want, Reggie said. Access without earning. Ownership without sacrifice. Power without patience. The cabin went quiet. Outside, runway lights blinked against the night. Darius picked up the flash drive, closed his fist around it, and felt something inside him become colder, clearer. What do we do? Reggie watched him for a long second. We don't chase him. Darius frowned. We don't? No. Greedy men run from pressure. But they walk straight into opportunity. No. Darius understood before Reggie finished. You want to bait him. I want to let him show the world who he is. The next morning, Darius did something that surprised even himself. He called Vanessa. She answered. On the fourth ring, her voice was guarded. What do you want? To talk. A pause. About what? About the man who told you those papers would give you access. Silence. That silence told him more than any confession could have. Finally, Vanessa whispered, Where are you? Same airport. She gave a nervous laugh, but there was no humor in it. Seriously? Same airport, he repeated. Another pause. Then quietly. Fine. She arrived alone this time. No friends. No black dress. No victory smile. No performance. She walked into the private lounge wearing a plain coat. Her hair tied back. Her face tired in a way makeup could not fully hide. For the first time in months, she looked human. Not proud. Not cruel. Human. She sat across from him and kept her eyes on the table. Darius did not speak first. He let the silence work. Vanessa's fingers trembled slightly. Finally, she said, I didn't know. Darius's expression did not change. Didn't know what? That they were using me. There it was, not an apology yet, not full truth, but a crack in the wall. Darius leaned back. Start from the beginning. Vanessa took a shaky breath. My business was failing. I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to look at me like I had failed. I was your husband. I know, she whispered. But I didn't feel like your equal. Darius's jaw tightened. That was your pride talking. I know that now. He said nothing. She continued. A man reached out through one of my friends. Said he believed in my brand. Said women like me deserved support. At first, it was money for the boutique. Then advice. Then introductions. Then he started asking about you. Darius watched her closely. What kind of questions? What did you own? What did your father leave you? Why were you so secretive? Why did you keep me in the dark? Her voice cracked slightly. He made it sound like you were controlling me. Like your privacy was disrespect. Like if I really valued myself, I would demand answers. Darius looked away for a moment. Pressure, disguised as empowerment. Poison, disguised as support. It was ugly, because it worked. Vanessa wiped under her eye. The more he talked, the more embarrassed I became. He made me feel like everyone knew something about you, except me. And then my friends started saying the same things. That you were hiding. That maybe you had nothing. That maybe I had married beneath myself. Darius looked back at her. And you believed them. Her shoulders dropped. I wanted to. That answer was honest. Painfully honest. I wanted to believe I was the one being wronged, she said, because then I didn't have to look at what I was becoming. Darius felt anger, but beneath it was something sadder, because Vanessa had not just betrayed him, she had abandoned herself first. He asked the question he had been avoiding. Did you ever love me? Her face broke. Immediately, tears came before words. Yes, no hesitation, no performance, just one raw word. And somehow, that hurt worse. Because betrayal without love is simple. Betrayal mixed with love leaves scars with names. Vanessa reached into her purse and pulled out a small flash drive. He wanted this. Darius looked at it. What is it? I don't know everything, but I know he panicked when the documents didn't work. He said there was still another way. He said your father had left proof somewhere, and if he found it before you understood it, he could still control the narrative. She slid the flash drive toward him. Why give this to me? Vanessa finally looked him in the eye. Because I was wrong. Her voice shook. And I'm tired of being useful to people who only respect me when I hate you. Darius stared at her. He did not forgive her in that moment. Life is not that simple. But, he believed, she was afraid. And sometimes fear is the first honest thing a person says after months of lying. That night, Darius and Malik watched the files together. Reggie stood behind them, arms folded, face unreadable. The flash drive contained recordings, meetings, financial schemes, shell company names, transfer attempts, conversations between Victor Haynes and people Vanessa had trusted. Then came the file that changed everything. An audio recording, Leon Coleman's voice, older, tired, but unmistakable. If anything happens to me, it will not be because I failed to protect the company. It will be because someone close to this circle chose betrayal. Darius's face went still. The room seemed to disappear around him. Malik whispered, D. Darius raised a hand. The recording continued. Leon spoke of pressure, threats, a failed partnership, a demand to sell aviation shares, a warning from someone inside his own network. Then another voice entered the recording. Victor Haynes, cold, smooth. You built something impressive, Leon. But men like you always make one mistake. Leon's voice answered. And what mistake is that? You think legacy protects your family, but legacy makes your family a target. The recording ended. Silence filled the room. Darius did not move. For years, he had believed his father died, carrying the ordinary weight of age, stress, and health. Now the past had opened its mouth. And what came out was betrayal. Reggie spoke quietly. Your father never had enough proof to take him down, but he had enough to prepare. Darius looked at him. And now? Now Victor thinks Vanessa's failure was just a delay. Malik leaned forward. So we make him try again? Reggie nodded. Exactly. 2 weeks later, invitations went out. A private aviation acquisition event. Elite buyers, investors, press, lawyers, executives. A carefully staged night built around one rumor. Darius Coleman was considering restructuring or selling parts of Coleman Aviation Holdings. The rumor spread fast because greedy people move quickly when they smell opportunity. Victor Haynes accepted the invitation within hours. Of course he did. He believed the son was weaker than the father. That was his first mistake. He believed Darius's silence meant ignorance. That was his second. And he believed Vanessa had destroyed Darius emotionally enough to make him careless. That was his final one. The night of the event, the hangar looked transformed. Lights glowed across polished floors. The black jet stood at the center like a monument. Investors moved in small circles, speaking in low voices. Cameras waited near the front. Lawyers stood near the stage. Pilots in dark uniforms lined the back wall. Old Atlanta money, new money, quiet money, loud money, all of it gathered under one roof. Vanessa arrived through a side entrance. She wore a simple navy dress, no dramatic jewelry, no crowd around her. She looked nervous, but steady. Darius saw her from across the room. She gave him a small nod. Not romantic, not pleading, just accountable. He nodded back. That was enough. Victor Haynes arrived 10 minutes later. He moved like a man who believed every room owed him space. Silver hair, tailored suit, expensive watch, calm, smile, cold eyes. When he saw Vanessa, his smile tightened. When he saw Darius, it returned. "Mr. Coleman," Victor said, extending his hand. Darius shook it. "Mr. Haynes." Victor looked toward the jet. "Your father had taste." Darius held his gaze. "My father had vision." A small pause. Victor smiled. "Let's hope you inherited that too." Darius smiled faintly. "More than you know." For the first time, Victor's eyes sharpened. A few minutes later, Darius stepped onto the stage. The room quieted. Cameras lifted. Vanessa stood near the side wall, hands clasped tightly. Reggie stood near the back, watching every exit. Malik stood near the control table. Darius looked out at the crowd. For years, he had hidden, not from shame, from wisdom. But there comes a moment when silence has done its job, a moment when hidden strength must become visible. He began calmly. "Some people think ownership is what you can seize." The room stayed silent. "My father taught me something different. He taught me that ownership begins with what you can protect." A few murmurs moved through the crowd. Victor watched closely. Darius continued. "For years, Coleman Aviation has operated quietly, not because it was small, not because it lacked power, but because some legacies grow best away from hungry eyes." Victor's jaw tightened. Darius turned slightly toward the jet. "This aircraft behind me has been used for business, family, emergency travel, training, and opportunity. But tonight, I am announcing that it will represent something greater." The screens behind him lit up. The Coleman Aviation Cooperative Initiative, a Black-owned cooperative investment and training group for underserved young pilots, engineers, aviation students, and entrepreneurs. Gasps moved through the hangar. Darius continued. "The company is not being sold. Its structure has already been secured. Its assets have already been protected. And its future will now be shared with young people who deserve access to industries that were never designed to welcome them." Applause began, then grew. Victor stood motionless. His face darkened. "This is fraud," he snapped loudly. The applause faded. Cameras turned. Darius looked at him. "No," he said calmly. "Fraud is trying to access aircraft authority through a divorce settlement. Fraud is using shell companies to pressure trust structures. Fraud is recruiting a man's wife to gather information about assets you could not legally touch." Victor's face went pale. The screens changed. Documents appeared. Recorded conversations. Transfer attempts. Financial trails. Victor's voice filled the hangar. "You don't need to love him. You just need access." "No." A shocked sound moved through the room. Vanessa closed her eyes as the words played. Her shame was visible, but she did not run from it. Then another recording played. Leon Coleman's voice. "If anything happens to me, follow the paper. Betrayal always leaves a receipt." Victor turned toward the exit, but Reggie was already standing there. So were two federal investigators. Darius had not just arranged an event. He had arranged timing, documentation, witnesses, press, lawyers, and law enforcement. Victor shouted something about lies, contracts, defamation, but panic had already broken his voice. Men like him were always calm while controlling other people's fear. They were much less impressive when fear finally found them. Security moved in. The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Investors backed away. Victor Haynes, who had spent years trying to steal a legacy, lost his reputation in front of the very world he had tried to impress. And that was the irony. He lost everything chasing what Darius never needed to brag about owning. Justice does not always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it arrives with documents. After the event, everyone wanted a statement. Darius gave none. He did not stand in front of cameras and perform victory. He did not humiliate Vanessa publicly. He did not turn his pain into entertainment for strangers, because healing does not need headlines. Outside the hangar, under the runway lights, Vanessa approached him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind moved softly between them. She looked at the jet, then at him. "I laughed while you signed those papers." Darius nodded. "Yes." Her eyes filled. "I'll hate that forever." Darius looked at her for a long moment. "Pain teaches," he said. She wiped her face. "Do you forgive me?" He thought carefully before answering. "Forgiveness is not pretending it didn't happen." Vanessa nodded, crying quietly. "But I won't let betrayal decide who I become," he said. That broke her. She covered her mouth and turned away, shoulders shaking. Darius did not reach for her, not because he hated her, because some endings deserve respect. There was no dramatic reunion, no sudden return to love, no promise that everything broken could become beautiful again. Life is not always that neat. Some damage changes shape, but it stays real. But there was truth now, and sometimes truth is the only mercy people get. Months passed. Coleman Aviation Cooperative launched its first training program. Young students who had never stepped near a cockpit were suddenly learning flight systems, aviation business, aircraft maintenance, and route planning. Scholarships were created in Leon Coleman's name. A mentorship program began. The jet that had once framed Darius's humiliation now became a symbol of access. That was life's strange poetry. Sometimes what attacks your legacy ends up expanding it. One afternoon, Darius stood near a training aircraft and watched a teenage girl climb down from the cockpit with a grin so wide it made everyone around her smile. She looked at him and said, "Mr. Coleman, why did you build this?" Darius looked at the runway, then at the students gathered nearby. "Because somebody once hid a future from me," he said, "and I decided not to hide it from you." The girl nodded slowly, like she understood more than her age should allow. Maybe she did. Pain recognizes purpose when it sees it. Later that day, Malik walked beside Darius near the hangar. He shook his head and laughed. "Bro, your ex tried to steal a jet and accidentally helped fund a movement." And Darius laughed, really laughed, harder than he had in years, because it was absurd and true. Life sometimes has a cruel sense of humor before it reveals its grace. One evening, Darius returned to Miss Loretta's porch. She was in the same chair, same bowl, same calm eyes that seemed to know things before he said them. He sat beside her. She did not look at him right away. "So," she said, dropping peas into the bowl, "what did you learn?" Darius leaned back. He thought about Vanessa, Victor, his father, the divorce papers, the laughter, the jet, the recordings, the trap, the truth. Then he said, "I learned quiet people aren't weak." Miss Loretta smiled. "What else?" Darius looked toward the sunset. "I learned sometimes what feels like losing is protection." She nodded slowly, like she had known all along. Old people often do. Vanessa rebuilt too. Not online, not loudly, not with captions about healing. Real rebuilding is quieter than that. She closed the boutique for a while, took financial responsibility for what she had done, gave statements when needed, and later she began speaking privately to women about emotional manipulation, financial pressure, and the danger of letting insecurity make decisions for you. It did not erase her betrayal, but it gave her shame somewhere useful to go. And that mattered, because redemption is not what you say when people are watching. It is what your pain makes you do when applause is gone. Years later, a reporter asked Darius about the divorce signing. The clip had become almost legendary by then. The wife, laughing. The husband, signing. The private jet in the background. The secret nobody knew. The reporter asked, "Did you know that day how everything would end?" Darius smiled. "No." Then he looked back at the black jet behind him. "But I knew something." "What?" Darius paused. When people laugh while you look defeated, sometimes they are only laughing because they cannot recognize restraint. The quote spread everywhere. People reposted it, talked about it, turned it into captions. But the deeper truth stayed quieter, as real truth often does. Because this story was never just about a private jet. It was never just about money. It was never just about a divorce. It was about what happens when people mistake humility for helplessness. It was about the danger of laughing at someone whose silence you do not understand. It was about a father's wisdom reaching beyond the grave. It was about betrayal exposing enemies, pride exposing weakness, and patience revealing power. Vanessa thought Darius signing those papers meant surrender. His enemies thought silence meant ignorance. Her friends thought modesty meant failure. Every one of them was wrong. Because the man they mocked as ordinary had inherited more than aircraft, trusts, and wealth. He had inherited discipline. He had inherited patience. He had inherited the kind of wisdom that cannot be stolen because it lives deeper than money. And maybe that is the lesson. Not every betrayal comes to destroy you. Some betrayals expose what was never loyal. Some reveal what was hidden. Some push you into becoming the person comfort would never have created. The people who laughed at Darius thought they were watching the end of his story. They did not know they were standing at the beginning of his power. And by the time they understood, it was already too late. If this story made you feel something, don't leave it here. Subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments which city or country you're watching from.